Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Beyond the Trailer Park. And yes, it is exactly the same people that was here last week, but that's okay because we're that good. Well, we are. Joining us from the wilds of Pennsylvania. Good evening, Beth. And you're muted.
Yeah. Good evening. Yeah, I was looking for my file for tonight. I'm like, wait a minute, I accidentally closed it.
Ah, hate it when that happens. Oh, hey, Tris, or hey, y'all, as they say. And joining us from the equally wild and wacky Mississippi. Good evening, Morgan.
Good evening, y'all.
Maybe one of these days you'll be from Tennessee. You never know.
We'll see. I am close to the border, so I've been inching. Like, if a joke is, I've been inching my way slowly north because I was closer to the. I used to be closer to the Gulf, and now I'm just like inching my way up. At this rate, I'll be in Kentucky when I'm about 100.
Oh goodness! Well, joining us, she's I think a little bit more north than you, from the also slightly wilds of Arizona. Good evening, Dee.
Good evening.
Well, I figured since we had so much fun last week with the Foreskin of Christ, we had to have Dee back.
Oh, yeah. So get your foreskins ready, people.
You know, I don't have any foreskins this week, though. I do have pictures from my trip to Japan.
And oddly enough, we actually had the kitten neutered this week. So, you know.
Oh, yeah. How did he take it?
Well, you're going to laugh. So he is a little hellion normally. So we take him in the early in the morning, and they do it, I don't know, like 9-ish, somewhere in there. And then they always give like a courtesy call, like, hey, everything was fine, just so you know, blah, blah, blah. And they usually have you pick them up after like 4 o'clock, as long as everything's good. So I get the call around, I don't know, it was like 10:30. And, you know, everything was fine. In fact, he's already like really recovered quickly, and you could probably come and get him around 1 o'clock. Well, normally, my husband would be working. That particular day, he actually wasn't, because they were moving his mother into a senior facility that day. So he actually wasn't working, but he was just planning to go to the vets after he was done with his family and deal with it then. So I said, well, it probably won't be quite that early because he's busy, you know, doing stuff, but thank you, you know, we'll definitely be there, you know, around 4-ish, whatever. So, you know, she hangs up. And this was like one of the veterinary assistants, as I called. So about 1:45, I get a phone call again, and this time it's the vet herself. And he's like, well, first of all, kitten's fine. I'm like, okay, because I know her voice, and I'm like, Bonnie, and she's like, it's okay, kitten's fine. And she says, so in fact, he's so fine that he's really, really angry that he's in a cage, and has in fact begun to hurt himself trying to get out of the cage. Can I bring him home now, please? I'm like, oh, hell, okay.
That's gotta be a first.
I think so. So he was bashing his face into the front of the cage, trying to get out so desperately that he's got a little spot up on the bridge of his nose where he actually wore the fur off and like gave himself a black eye. So I know. So she brought him home and dropped him off, and my hubby went later and took care of the bill and all that. And they sent hubby home with pain meds, not for having been neutered, but because of him bashing his face into the damn cage.
Holy wow.
Yeah. And I got him in the door. I opened up his carrier. He jumped on me and like licked my face off, and then proceeded to go flying up the stairs and attack one of the other cats to wrestle.
Wow.
Yeah. And you would never know that he was neutered. Like, he's just like, whatever.
My lug just came home, looked at me like, what the fuck did you do to me? And went to sleep.
Oh, no. He didn't sleep for a good 3 hours after he came home.
Wow.
He was just, he was like, don't you ever do that to me again. Now, where's the other cat?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, little hellion.
This little face okay?
Yeah, the fur's starting to grow in back on the spot that he rubbed off. So, and like when they called me, they had to take him out of the cage, and one of the veterinary assistants was trying to like hold him on her lap. And when he gets like where I want down now. I am amazed that she was even able to hold him that long, but they didn't want to put him back in the cage because he was just hurting himself.
Oh, poor kitty.
I know. I said to Arno, I hope we never have to board him because that's not going to work.
Obviously.
Little
Wow.
shithead.
Well, maybe, well, I can't say that he'll settle down because my lug sure hasn't.
Well, I'm hoping that he will once he's got less to no testosterone going on, but I don't know. He's been pretty rambunctious this week yet. So.
Well, that's the thing with Zorro. I got him fixed pretty much at 4.5 to 6 weeks round. As soon as he started humping a blanket, I was like, "Oh, you're going. Goodbye."
Vlad hadn't shown any sign. Like, well, he was just barely 4 months.
Yeah.
So that was.
Yeah, with Z, because I live above the restaurant, obviously I don't want that odor going downstairs. So as soon as he showed that he was gone, and as I said, I'm not, it was within 4 to 6 months, but you'd think he would settle down. Nope, he rips through this apartment like there's no tomorrow, and I have,
I don't mind him going on a running rampage. I just wish he would stop thinking that playtime means biting me, because like my hands are now he only ever does it in the context of play,
right?
And only in very specific areas, kind of thing. But yeah, I just get like part of my hand healed up, and then he nails me again. So
yeah, well, that's what he he still nips. But he's getting better at it, but yeah, he's basically managed to clear off my shelf behind me, all my knickknacks off my one desk.
Yeah, we have in our living room we have big wooden pillars between the living room and the dining room, and we had wound some tinsel around them for Christmas. Yeah, that didn't last.
Yeah, I was gonna try to hang up just a string of lights around my one window, but I was like, yeah, no, he'll have those down in 5 seconds. And I wanted to get just a Charlie Brown tree, but I'm like, yeah, that's not gonna last either. I was like, because he's already destroyed 2 cactuses.
Oh, geez.
Oh, that takes work.
Yeah.
These aren't like the little dinky. These are normal cactus that get spines, about an inch, 2 inches long. How he managed to do, well, it doesn't help I forgot the water. How do you kill a fucking cactus? I figured it out. Although I had help.
You can forget to water them for a short time, but
yeah, well.
Yeah, well, anyway, so no kitties don't have foreskins, but this one's missing some balls now too. All right, so I hope you ladies found some wacky shit. I've found a few things as well, and I'm sure there's going to be some overlap on various lists, but we can easily skip the stuff that we've heard of before. And like, I know on my one list here, the one we definitely talked about last week was Mary's breast milk, which I thought was really weird.
One of the things I noticed, I did a little bit more digging, it just into the whole notion of relics, and not just the holy relics, but I mean, it's just bizarre when it's like body parts, and even more bizarre because there's like, the blood and the breast milk and, foreskins and all that. But it actually goes back to like antiquity, like with Greek and Roman culture. And I was kind of surprised because like, and one thing I found, they were talking about the bones of Orestes and Theseus were supposedly stolen from their original resting place, and then they were found and reburied. Then there's Eurystheus. He was supposedly protecting Athens from enemy attack when they were in Thebes, and also the prophet Amphiaraus, another oracle. Some body parts of his were considered relics, and Orpheus was taken to Lesbos. And even in Hinduism, although it's not as common as far as body parts because they do cremation, but in Buddhism, there's quite a few. So it's not just a quote Christian thing.
For some in Islam as well.
Yeah, I was surprised. I was really actually surprised about the Islam ones, because it was like, if for some reason I just had in the back of my mind that, no, but yeah, there's I mean, just like with Buddhism, there was quite a list, and I'm not going to try to pronounce these because, I'd like slaughter these, but there's quite a few tooth relics. There's like 12 of them. It's really bizarre. But what I found even funnier is that within the Catholic Church, they classify them according to, rank. I guess there's first class, second class, and third.
Oh,
they actually classify their relics.
So is a foreskin a first class relic or what?
Well, their classification for a first class relic is any item directly associated with the events of Christ's life, such as the manger or the cross, or the physical remains of a saint, such as bone, hair, skull, limb. Traditionally, a martyr's relic are often more prized than the relics of other saints. And this is all from Wikipedia. I kept it simple. A second class relic is an item that the saint owned or frequently used, for example, a crucifix, a rosary, or a book. And then a third class relic, and I just thought this classification was just rather bizarre, but any object that is touched to a first or second class relic. Okay, so it's like, okay, all it has to do is touch this piece of hair and it's considered a relic.
All right.
And they said most third class relics are small pieces of cloth. Though in the first millennium, oil was very popular, and one of the examples they give was the Mosaic ampullae, which contained oil collected from lamps burning before the major sites of Christ's life. And some of the reliquary had holes for oil to be poured in and out of. So it's like, not to belittle the Catholic Church even more than I normally do, it's really fucking bizarre. I'm like, but then you have the split with Eastern Orthodoxy. And it's like they have relics of the true cross, holy nails, holy sponges, holy lances, holy thorns, instruments of the passion. There's the famous examples are the holy nail in the Iron Crown of Lombardy, which is in the Monza Cathedral. Then there's the Holy Lance, which is part of the crown of jewels of the Holy Roman Empire. I mean, there was just like they have the seamless robe of Jesus.
Okay.
Sandals of Jesus. I can't pronounce that word, so I'm not even going to try.
Are the shoes cute at least?
I didn't see a picture of them. I didn't have time to. I
Well,
forgot.
the sandals are kind of a look unto
Yeah.
themselves, really.
But then you have relics associated with the Apostle Paul, with Mark, with James, with Andrew. I mean, it's just John the Baptist. I think I saw 3 or 5 various heads floating around.
Oh, I found there's a saint's head that I found in a couple of lists.
Yeah, I mean, there's like St. George's arm.
Oh, girl, I got some fun stuff on my list here too, like that. This is good though. This one I is a little side piece to go with the Holy Foreskin. So, because of course the foreskin shows up on a number of lists, but this one says, let's see. Interestingly, most of the visions that relate to the holy prepuce, or however they pronounce it, were from female saints. Oddly enough, Saint Bridget claimed that she had orgasms when bits of foreskin were dropped on her tongue by an angel.
Oh, that is a gross ass freaky angel.
Yeah.
Not to kink shame angels, but good lord.
Yeah, I'm just like,
I have a similar one actually too.
Okay, good.
Okay, so I've got Saint Catherine's dismembered body, which apparently they've scattered around Italy.
Yes.
So she was born in the 14th century in Tuscany, had a twin sister which died, which, I mean, 14th century, that was, kind of common. And apparently they were the 23rd and 24th children born to their parents as well.
Yep.
Fun fact. So she claimed to have visions of Jesus from a young age, and then she entered into what is called a mystical marriage.
Yep.
And they had a relationship that was signified not by a wedding ring, but by an invisible ring of Jesus's foreskin. But it was invisible. So in adulthood, she apparently worked for the sick and the poor, and then they made her the patron saint of nurses and illness. And they also have her head, which it looks like it's put in like some kind of weird like antique you would find in your grandma's house.
Oh,
it's very bizarre.
I have oh, that's not a very good picture. Hang on, I can get
an image of it. So yeah, so a few years after she was buried, Blessed Raymond of Capua decided that it would be better to honor her by moving her mortal remains to a basilica in her hometown of Siena. So they then opened up her tomb, and so they were attempting to move it, but then her head popped off. So
that's gross.
Yeah, so then they've carefully kind of guarded her head, but they have it kind of on display. And then the rest of her remains are kind of all over Italy. They say there's 3 fingers and a foot in Venice, a hand and a shoulder blade in Rome, and one of her ribs is in Florence. So it's just like, yeah, her body parts are everywhere.
Here's one. This gives you like an overall.
Yeah, it's like a weird like shop with rebar. Yeah, I got mine from I'll cite my sources from cracked.com, which I love their listicles, but I got a lot of good stuff from Cracked.
I have the same list up, so
well,
okay, yeah, I have that, and then list verse.
Yeah, list verse and Cracked are good.
Yeah, I know that with 2 saints, Saint Thomas Aquinas and Saint Teresa of Avila, they were fighting over their bodies after they died. And, God, how to explain this? One of Teresa's arms got left in in the city she died in. The rest of her got moved to Avila.
Right.
And with St. Thomas Aquinas, the story I heard was they were so quick to want to get pieces of him after he died that they basically boiled him.
Yeah.
What is it with body parts? I can understand hair to a degree. I
Well,
mean,
because they believe it'll heal you. Like, you know, if you go and you visit a certain saint's relic, particularly if they're a saint of something, you know, like they have these patron saints of like illnesses. If I were to go and like touch it or pray at it, then I could not necessarily touch it even, but even just pray at it, and it's like make a pilgrimage there. Essentially, especially back in the Middle Ages. I mean, that's kind of what the Canterbury Tales are all about. You know, they're going to make a pilgrimage. So you would go there and then you could, you know, pray for certain things, particularly with illnesses and things like that. And if it's a patron saint like Saint Catherine, I'm thinking of, you know, these various illnesses, and being the patron saint of nurses, you know, that would be a relic that if you were suffering from a particular illness, you might want to go visit.
But what I find funny, especially in regards to the to Roman Catholicism, is that I vaguely remember reading in one of the articles I was reading concerning relics, is that the Roman Catholic Church states you're not worshiping the relic.
No, you're not.
But it's like, if you're praying to it, then what the fuck?
No, you're not praying to it. You're praying to God. But the thing is, like that saint, it's like an intermediary. It's like the saint can put in a good word for you, essentially, and be like, hey, this person is very faithful. They made this journey to show how faithful they are. So, yo, Jesus, go do them a favor. Basically. That's my understanding.
That's why I was like, okay, you're saying you're not worshiping it, but yet you're praying. But yeah, I understand.
Yeah, it's like an intermediary.
Yeah.
So
okay.
Another thing was at, you know, towards the end of the Middle Ages and at the beginning of the Renaissance, and in fact this was the impetus to the Reformation, is the whole business with relics, because you had the Pope in Rome needing money to fix St. Peter's. You had an Archbishop in Mainz who needed money to pay the Pope back for the money he borrowed so that he could become Archbishop. This was a big trade back in those days. Yeah. And you had Martin Luther's prince, I think his name was Frederick, who had a really superb collection of relics. And the thing about relics was not merely that you went to pray in front of the relic, you know, to ask St. Catherine for intercession on something, but that you could get time off in purgatory. And that was all part of Tetzel's thing. Tetzel was the guy with the relics that was trying to raise money so that the Archbishop of Mainz could pay back the Pope could, and all that. Well, the thing was, if you just assume that Luther was doing this because, you know, he was horrified by relics, well, no, not really. That's not quite all that it was involved, because his patron, the Prince Frederick, had this incredible collection of relics that would give you cajillions of time off in purgatory, but people weren't coming to see them. They were sneaking across to the next princes over where Tetzel was preaching, and giving Tetzel money so that they could you know, get their sins absolved. And it was a huge scandal. And that's why Luther was, you know, I mean, people really paid attention to what he had to say, because it wasn't like Luther was some, you know, was original here. I mean, people were really griping about the fact that they were being hit up by these, you know, relic mongers.
Well, I mean, I wasn't able to dig too deep because I got sidetracked with work and stuff, but it's like, I don't, like, I know within Roman Catholicism and Eastern Orthodoxy, they have a boatload. Now, I don't know about Protestantism or within, like, you know, the various, you know, denominations. If, like, I mean, I'm Lutheran. My initial church as a child that my mother went to since the 1920s, when it was, you know, basically founded, as far, I mean, we were as close to Luther's doctrine as one could get, and so I don't even remember I don't think we had any quote relics, that they ever mentioned at all. But I wonder if, like in Methodism or Baptist or et cetera, if they're, or is it just a
they don't have relics they don't have relics in the way that you think of them, but they have items that they venerate.
Yeah.
I mean, think about the way that they look at the Bible, for example. That would be the item of veneration. And I know in some, independent fundamental Baptist churches, I've heard of this, people going up and getting their Bibles signed by the preacher.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I thought it was bizarre too, but it's a thing.
Or even they'll record baptisms or marriages even, and or they'll pass them down from family member to family member as well.
I have one with that in it, but my current Bible has signed by Aaron Ra, so
pastor of a different kind.
And my Book of Mormon is signed by David, Michael, and Brace.
I just find it kind of odd that it seems to be, I mean, as far as Christianity goes, seems to be relegated to the Catholic Church, not just the Roman Catholic, but Eastern Northern. But I'm not, I didn't see anything geared towards like Mormonism or J-Dubs, but I'm pretty sure they have them.
There are. Now, I've got some Muslim ones.
Yeah, I have some Muslim ones because Morgan brought that up, and I was actually surprised because I'm
not. I mean, I know they talk about you're not supposed to, have images and whatnot, but none of these are images. Which is
right. I think that was in the back of my mind. So when I was a couple articles I read,
they're more anal about images than some of the Protestant sects that criticize Catholics. So what I have one here. And now this is from a blog by J.F. Penn. I don't know who it is, but they've done a blog post. He's a thriller author, so it makes sense he would write about this. But he's got Muhammad's footprint.
I've heard of this.
Which is apparently in Istanbul. It says the Topkapi Palace in Istanbul houses a number of Muhammad's relics. They include a signed letter, a sword and a bow, his footprint, and hair from his beard. Yeah, I could see them venerating beard hair for sure. So it says, according to legend, his beard was shaved after his death by his favorite barber. Okay. But it says his footprint allegedly made a lasting impression wherever he went, and prints are displayed all over the Middle East. Some remain in situ, but the Istanbul print is preserved in the museum. Okay, I'm sorry, but there's no, and we kind of talked about this a little bit before last week, but provenance people, you could just be like, oh yeah, that's Muhammad's footprint, but how the hell would you ever prove that?
Yeah. Well, it's just like one list I saw had the sword of Ali, the staff of Moses, turban of Joseph, sword of David, pot of Abraham. I'm not sure
what Joseph wore a turban.
Well, that's what I was wondering myself, but
probably the Joseph of Genesis, the one with the 11 jealous brothers.
That's right.
I'm thinking Joseph of Arimathea.
Yeah, and I'm thinking
Jesus' stepdad.
Yeah. They have the forearm and hand of Yaha.
Who's Yaha?
I have no clue. I didn't get that far. I kind of got interrupted.
This one has showed up on a couple of lists. The Holy Right Hand, believed to have belonged to King Stephen, the first king of Hungary, who died in 1038, which is this is one of these deals though where so it said his death was like a big thing and they were worried about his body being desecrated, so they dug him up and they discovered that his right arm was perfectly preserved. And again, what a lot of these ancient people thought of as perfectly preserved, it does not jive with my definition, but okay.
It's like, it's not just.
Yeah. His arm was added to the basilica's treasury. It was stolen and kept in Romania for a while, which I find extremely interesting because I spent time over in Romania. But it is now back in the Basilica of St. Stephen in Budapest. It says, though, a chronicler noted that while it was in Romania, the hand had St. Stephen's ring on it. And it said that the current holy hand on display does not wear a ring and doesn't look like it has ever worn a ring. So there is some speculation that it may not be the actual hand of King Stephen. So we don't know.
Speaking of the things being perfectly preserved, I have another one similar to that, which is a very bizarre and wild story. It's the tongue and jaw of Saint Anthony.
I saw that one.
So he's the patron saint of lost things, which, yeah, if saints were real, that'd totally be mine. So Saint Anthony is one of the he's one of the people that he came down with St. Anthony's fire. It's named after him, also known as ergot poisoning, which we also mentioned. He's about 35. And so the story goes, he retreated to a small cell beneath a walnut tree for his final days. And then 30 years after his death, his admirers decided to go into his vault. And I love it. I love Crack so much. He said, because apparently you have to check on dead bodies every few years, like they're casks of wine.
Yeah.
As it so happens, most of him, had turned to dust, basically, but with the purportedly miraculous exception of his tongue, which was described as having been uninjured, fresh, and a lively red color. So here's where it gets really weird.
It wasn't weird already?
No, it gets really weird here. Saint Bonaventure was so enamored of the tongue that he snatched it up and kissed it.
Yes, that was gross.
Then he took it to the town metalsmith to be smelted, so people could continue to be inspired by it. So not only that, but Bonaventure and company also took St. Anthony's lower jaw and his vocal cords and mounted them in something, I love this again, that looks less like an item of the divine and more like a puzzle box from a Guillermo del Toro movie.
Oh my God.
It is unclear whether Anthony was named the patron saint of lost things after someone removed half of his face and neck, or if that was a happy accident.
So can I take the screen for a minute and show you a relic? Yeah, let me. Yeah, whatever. Sure.
Well, she's doing that. Oh,
because I know. Hold on a second. I've got it. There we go. All right. So I went to Nagasaki when I was in Japan, and one of the places I visited was a museum of. They had, if you're not aware, the Japanese were pretty down on Christianity for a while, and would execute people. And the place I visited is the place where 26 martyrs were crucified. So kind of grim. Anyway, this here is a reliquary that was sent from Europe to one of the Japanese churches before the shit basically hit the fan and they were urged to get out. But this is one of them. Anyway, the important part of it is that it's called the lignum crucis, or wood from Jesus's cross. I remember that quip from John Calvin about
true cross.
About the true cross. Well, there you go. It also is surrounded in these other little holes with relics from other saints. anyway, that was on display at the museum for the 26 martyrs, which was actually pretty interesting and definitely worth the time. You know, let me just go ahead and surrender the come on, baby, go away.
Quite a lovely piece, though. That
it is very nice, and you know, I've seen other reliquaries, and that is a really fine example of a reliquary. Okay, so they had a lot of stuff in this museum.
Just so people know, the reliquary refers to whatever bejeweled item is created to encase the body part or the piece of cross or the piece of cloth or whatever it is. And I was digging this up while Dee was talking. This is the one of Saint Anthony with his lovely jaw.
Oh dear God!
So wait a minute, don't take it off.
I loved the caption that crack.com did. They were like, "Can a lamp scream?" Yes.
But if you it's like
that, honest to God, that is. Oh my God, I am so sorry.
Like they put ears on it, and like there's a little bit of fake.
Oh my God!
Here.
Yes, it is what you think it is. I'm just having a momentary. Oh my God! Here.
Yeah.
That is one of the most horrifying things I've ever seen, and that's going to haunt my nightmares forever.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you. It was much better. That's a much more terrifying view of a one that I had from the article.
That's kind of why I was looking for.
Yeah, that is.
I just don't get that.
No.
I guess I just don't understand.
No, I don't really either.
I mean, I
can go but one better if you want to all look at pictures of the jeweled skeletons.
Yeah, those are fun.
Those are fun. Okay, so let me get the screen up and then I'll.
I mean, I can understand like crosses, you know, pieces of the cross or the spear of destiny or crown of thorns. I can understand inanimate objects, but to have a jaw and tongue.
Okay, so here you go. Here's one. Let me give you some background on these guys.
Want that done with my body.
Isn't that great though? Okay, so what they did is you going back to the Reformation. Basically, we had kingdoms, a lot of little princely type places in Germany, going back and forth from Protestant to Catholic to Protestant. And when the Catholics would get them back, basically they'd set up new cathedrals with these type of relics in them. Basically, they were, they carved in a saint who was all glittered up like this, and that was for them. I mean, they had workshops that did this stuff. That's one guy. No, I do not want a new free book. I want to show some of these. Isn't this great though? I mean, see, the thing is it's just kind of creepy though. But here's one of a hand with rings and stuff on it.
Yeah,
I mean, to me, that's almost like, I mean, literally flaunting wealth.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what people have been doing for centuries. I mean, that's what the millennium. That's what the pyramids are.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, that's a good.
This is a good one that in the creepy. It's Saint Mundidia in the Church of Saint Peter in Munich. Grasps a flask supposedly containing dehydrated blood as evidence of her martyrdom. And when faith in the catacombs saints waned, Mundidia was boarded up and spent several decades hidden from view. This is from a book that a guy, Paul Kudanaris, did. You can buy it on Amazon. He went around and photographed these things, and this is actually just incredibly amazing stuff that the Catholic Church thought by hauling out these catacombs, what they thought were catacomb saints, and tarting them up with all these jewels and stuff. They had ready-made, objects of worship.
Well, then another thing you were saying, Deb, or no, it was Beth who was saying about you don't get why it was, you get inanimate objects, but not necessarily the body parts. I think part of it is because a lot of these saints, they did take vows of poverty and they took, these things. So you wouldn't really have any possessions
Right.
of them. So.
Oh, I've got a picture of my own too. So, back in 2013, we went to Quebec City for vacation. And near there is a town called Saint Anne de Beaupré. And I had gone there in a class trip in like 8th grade in like 1986. And we were gonna go out that way anyway. So I'm like, because I love the architecture, right? So I'm like, let's go back. I want to go back. So Saint Anne de Beaupré is Anne, the mother of Mary, the mother of Jesus. So the basilica is this huge Gothic revival basilica, is for basically Jesus's grandma. So they have, of course, a chunk of Anne's arm in the basilica. So I just was remembering that I have that, right? So there we go. That is the reliquary in Saint Anne de Beaupré. And right there, it's like her forearm. So they've put it in like a golden hand and just like exposed the corpse forearm in there.
That's funny because now it makes me wonder when I was, growing up, my parents were real big on our vacations being, quote, educational. So
the
we
whole
went,
reliquary from back further.
yeah, we
Sorry.
went to a lot of these like cathedrals, and we went to when we were in LA, the mosque was first opening up there. It was just built, so we had a tour there. So we went to a lot of these. I think they're strange now, but a lot of the Catholic cathedrals and stuff. And I'm wondering how much of this shit I probably saw when I was a kid, but didn't realize what the hell I was looking at. And
Yeah.
I'm like, now it freaks me out because I'm thinking, oh my God, I mean, how? I guess I'm just like totally flabbergasted. But it's like I was saying while we were getting ready for this show, I always thought of this as a religious thing.
Yep.
And lo and behold, we have Galileo's finger.
Yeah, and we got King Stephen's hand, supposedly. Just
how about Napoleon's penis?
Yes, I've heard about that one.
Yeah, this is from the BBC, and it says Napoleon Bonaparte's penis was allegedly removed from his body and passed down from generation to generation. And then there's a picture there, and I can't share pictures really well, so I'm not even gonna.
What did you inherit from Grandma? Oh, I got Napoleon's penis. How about you?
Yeah. They go, while some secular relics reside in public museums, others are kept private.
Oh my God. Speaking of secular relics, hold on. Go ahead. Keep talking.
Take Napoleon Bonaparte's penis. In 1821, an English surgeon allegedly did. The recently deceased body of the French commander was autopsied on the Atlantic island of St. Helena, where he had been banished 6 years earlier by the British after the French defeat at Waterloo. For years, the British had struggled to get the measure of the savvy military genius, but it was only after the general's genitalia were said to have been removed from his body that they got the chance. Regularly satirized by British caricaturists, Napoleon was cut down to size and forced in death to live up to the choppy nickname by which he's long been lampooned Bone a part.
Oh.
But then supposedly there's Einstein's eyes, allegedly removed, dissected from the brain by pathologist Thomas Harvey shortly after his death.
Okay, so I can top all this.
Oh,
Jeremy Bentham's auto icon. Now, Jeremy Bentham was a philosopher. Okay, so I have a picture of it here. He was a philosopher. Let me get this switched over. Okay, there's that, and that's him. Anyway,
Yes.
That's good old Jeremy there. They had issues getting him looking like that. He had some things they wanted to try, but they weren't especially successful. The body is his, the face is not, the head is separated. It's actually in a different place. That there is Jeremy's head. I'm sorry if I grossed anybody out, but he has
those are glass eyes.
He is on display, or he was on display. He's locked away, but he does come out at meetings, and he was reported to be present but not voting at a meeting of his college in 2013. So there you go, Jeremy Bentham, auto icon.
He is the inspiration, quote unquote, for the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, or the one. From Star Trek, Wrath of Khan.
And the name of the channel is escaping me at the moment, but there's a channel that I subscribe to on YouTube. It's done by she's a mortician out of LA area. Oh, Beth, do you remember the name of the channel?
I'm trying to think of it, and I can't off the top of my head. Her name is
Caitlin, and she does stuff about true facts about what happens when you die and answering questions about death, but she also does historical stuff, and she did a whole video about Bentham and his head. She has a series called Iconic Corpses.
I think I've actually seen that, but I don't remember if it was his or there's another.
Well, there's one, the little girl in the catacombs in, I want to say it's Italy,
France.
No, not France. Definitely not France. But she's done a bunch of iconic corpse episodes, and Bentham was one of them. I remember because she does this little thing, and it's so cute. She's talking away, and whenever she mentions Bentham, this little thing would pop out from the side of her video, and it's her voice, but it just goes, Bentham's head, every time, and it's just the funniest thing. But it does it every time she blah 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 Bentham's head, and it's sort of subliminal in the background, but it's just this little ribbon that pops out with a picture of his head and then goes back. So I always remember that. It's Bentham's head.
That reminds me of Elmer McCurdy, who was he robbed a place and he got in a shootout with police. This is back in the 1920s, but then he was basically, I think, he was preserved in a funeral home, and basically you would put you would pay to see it, and they would put a penny in his mouth.
Yeah.
And then it goes on and on until he ends up at an amusement park near a ride or something in the 1970s. And at first they thought it was a homicide or something because they didn't discover it till later. There's a great
wasn't it in a
episode about it? Yeah, it was something like that. Yeah, they thought it was just a dummy or something, but yeah, it turned out to be his corpse. And it was, what did they do? Oh yeah, they did end up actually burying him. But yeah, there's a great Dollop podcast episode about it. I think that My Favorite Murder did an episode about him as well, and then there's a good drunk history episode on him.
And the channel is called Ask a Mortician.
That's right.
Okay.
Here's one that I thought was kind of bizarre in a way. Let's see if I can do this.
Well, just quickly, I'm just gonna. She's done, of course, Jeremy Bentham. She's done Ferdinand Marcos, the Diva Corpse, Lady Dai, which is spelled Dai, which is an ancient Chinese corpse. She's done Sartaji Bartum, which was a Victorian era woman who was stolen from Africa. Elena de Hoyos is another one. Eva Perón, which is a really well-known one. Yeah, so she's done a whole bunch of them.
Oh wow.
Iconic. I just searched for iconic corpse and there's like 10 of them right away. So, but the channel is Ask a Mortician. I highly recommend it. She's awesome. But anyway, sorry, Beth.
No, that's fine. Screen share is not my forte, so.
Oh, you're doing fine.
This is one that really kind of, I guess, for lack of a better word, just really freaks me out. It's the heart of Saint Camillus de Lelis.
Yep.
Founder of the Order of
Chameleons.
Thank you. And I'm like, how the fuck do you say that?
Not to be confused with the critter.
Yeah.
No.
That's why I was like, okay, in the late 16th century.
Yep.
It's like, there can't be much left of that.
Yeah, his story's fun. He
Oh, here's a bigger.
There's a bigger. Yeah, it's pretty gross.
Yeah, Camillus was going to be a soldier, but then he discovered that gambling was a better way to make money. So he gambled until he basically lost all his money, and then he started driving a donkey cart, and then he believed in divine retribution. So then he repented and saw the error of his ways and devoted his life to caring for the ill. And then he endured a litany of ailments, including what he's called a sore in his leg for 46 years, a rupture for 38 years, which he got by serving the sick, 2 callous sores in the sole of one of his feet, which gave him great pain, violent nephritic colics, and for a long time before he died, a loss of appetite. So, yeah, they're not sure. So apparently he also, his heart has toured the world from Thailand to the Philippines and all the way to Ireland. Yeah. So they put it on tour, and then I loved Cracked because Cracked did a piece on it.
That's where I saw it.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, it was like, you think he wouldn't want to be jet setting around the world in like a hotel heiress, but
it's like after a long life of caregiving, conflict, and pain, he went forever to rest. Or at least he did until someone decided to rip his Christ-loving heart out of his dead-ass chest.
This is another one that got... this is a Buddhist one. It's the Sacred Relic of the Tooth of Buddha.
I was going to bring that one up too, so good.
Yeah, I guess it just blows me away because it's something I've always assumed was a Christian thing, primarily Catholic, and it really isn't because, as I said, we have the finger of Galileo, the eyes of Einstein. I don't know if the Einstein's brain is considered a relic. I do know supposedly it's been preserved. I mean, it's like just really... Oh, and I have a picture of the Prophet Muhammad one too.
Do you have a picture, a better picture of the tooth, or no?
No, that's the only one that came up.
Let me, I've got one here that while you're looking for the other one, I'll share that.
Okay. Hey,
I've got one as well. A Buddhist tooth.
So this is the article that I found. This was from Listverse. And it says, after Buddha was cremated, his left canine tooth was found in the ashes by his disciple Kama, who gave it to King Brahmadatta so that it may be venerated. Legends began to circulate, the most prominent of which was that whoever possessed it had the divine right to rule Brahmadatta's kingdom. Many wars were fought for no other reason than to own it. The tooth was said to be responsible for converting many Indian kings to Buddhism, performing miracles each time it was threatened with destruction. It is now placed within several golden caskets and displayed only for special ceremonies. So if it performs a miracle every time somebody threatens to destroy it, do you think we could get rid of Trump and Pence that way?
Hmm.
I'm willing to give it a try.
Yeah. I don't know about you guys, but I mean, I've had teeth pulled before, and I don't remember that. That doesn't seem to resemble a tooth to me, but
you also have to remember that had also been through cremation as well.
Yeah, okay.
So I see what looks like roots at one end, and so
I do, but I'm still kind of like, really?
Yeah, but I could see it. Let me put it this way: it's somebody's tooth. I don't know that it's Buddha's tooth.
Well, that's just it. Because, and the thing is, so unless they cremated only him in that space, would you be sure that that was his tooth? Like if he was cremated at a crematorium, then there's no bloody way to know who the hell's tooth that is. But if they built like a pyre or something just for him, then you could say, okay, that's his tooth because that's the only body that we burnt in this space.
Yeah.
But
well, that's the thing. Like I'm flipping through some of my other articles, and you had I think you mentioned this last week when you were talking about the Holy Foreskin, is that there's currently 18 different churches that have laid claim to it, and it's supposedly missing. I mean, it's like
Also, imagine a few people made quite a bit of money by being like, "Oh, this is totally the bones of such and such saint."
Yep.
Yeah. According to this, it said, well, it only is. Yes, it really is weird as it sounds. As many as 18 different churches have laid claim to the skin from the infant Jesus's circumcised penis since the Middle Ages. Saint Catherine of Siena even claimed to wear an invisible foreskin ring, which we mentioned. But the most notorious holy foreskin was kept in the town of Calcutta near Rome until it disappeared in 1983. Its whereabouts is still unknown. So at least one of the 18 is missing.
Well, I'm thinking that one probably is with some mafia don, but
it's like they can't keep track of them, let alone knowing what person it belonged to. Like you were saying, Deb, if they
for sure. Well, and there's an episode of Blackadder which has actually always been one of my favorites, and it's called The Archbishop. It's from first season, and Blackadder inadvertently gets made the Archbishop of Canterbury, and so he and his cronies, they're trying to figure out what, how do we do this, and what's all this archbishop stuff about, because he'd never been to church really, and they find out about the reliquary business, and there's this great scene where they're going through boxes that they found in the archbishop's quarters with all of these different relics in it, and like, here's a box of St. John the Baptist noses, and oh, it's awesome. It's so awesome. Like, here's, a bunch of Jesus pinky fingers and things like that. It's I highly recommend that one too, because it's well, let's see. So Baldric is one of Blackadder's sidekicks, and it says this is just from Wikipedia if you want to get a synopsis of the episode, but it says later Baldric reveals a plan to profit from their ordination by commercializing religious artifacts, selling curses, papal pardons, and religious artifacts. He proposes a new product line of holy relics, including a set of shrouds from Turin, anachronistic gifts such as a pipe rack and a coffee table, purportedly from the carpentry wood shop of Jesus Christ, along with a variety of bones and other body parts of saints, all revealed to be counterfeit items produced by Baldric himself. Despite his initial displeasure, Blackadder starts to settle in as archbishop and given the benefits of the position, yada yada yada. But yeah, that was the other one, was he was like going to start selling like furniture by Jesus. Which I thought was pretty awesome. And then their one friend, who he's the dumbest of the three, came in and was like, "Oh, Holy Relic." He's like, "You are my friends. I can share this with you. Look what I have. I have a piece of the one true cross." And he pulls this like out of his purse and, you know, daintily unwraps it like it's so precious to him. And Baldric is like, "Oh yeah, those are 2 pence down in the corner," you know. But there's so much truth to that scene. Like, it's all tongue in cheek, and they're being a bit hyperbolic, but the gist of it was completely true.
Yeah. Well, that's what I find so weird. It seems, especially with the bejeweled skeletal remains, it just seems so money oriented.
It is. It absolutely is.
It just seems kind of a oxymoron to me. What I found really interesting, though, when I was searching, is there's a church in Pittsburgh, which is 3 hours from me, called St. Anthony's Chapel. And outside of the Vatican, it has the largest collection of relics. It has like over 5,000 relics of various.
You know what I would love, and no one would ever let you do it, but I would love to have all that shit carbon dated.
Well, yeah. Well, there was an article by Vice. Let me see if I can find it. That they were talking about the weird, as they titled it, the weird and fraudulent world of Catholic relics.
Yeah.
And like, there's quite a few that they mentioned, like this one here. This revelation came in 1825 from British geologist William Buckland, who, while on his honeymoon, made an examination of the relics and determined them to be non-human. And that was back in the 1800s. No, I'm trying to see if they mentioned specific ones. I didn't read the whole article earlier, but yeah. So I mean, fake relics. I mean,
well, and
look at the Shroud of Turin.
Yes,
I mean,
the most famous of them all and the biggest fraud of them all.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not convinced. I mean, I'm not convinced that it's the Shroud of Christ, obviously, but
I'm convinced that it's not.
Yeah, I mean, but whether it's an actual forgery, you know, I'm not 100% convinced. But I have not kept up on the research in like 15 years, so I'm way behind.
Yeah, it's pretty definitive that it's a medieval forgery.
Right, and that's the last I had heard, was that they determined it to be a medieval forgery. But what I found kind of odd is when, I mean, and this is going back quite a few years, so I don't know where people stand on it now, is that I believe it was Ratzinger who basically had stated that believers needed to believe that it was the Shroud of Christ at the time of burial to strengthen their faith. And I'm thinking, if you need a cloth to tell you, you know, then your faith is based.
Yeah.
Isn't really based. Now, to assign a miracle to, I can kind of, sort of see that, you know, attribute a miracle to a relic, but it's still, if you need something to solidify your faith, it just
think of it practically. So, okay, so let's say how they attribute miracles to saints, right?
Mm-hmm.
So ostensibly, if if you're believing saints, you're gonna probably believe in a soul, and that means that saint, their thought processes, their personalities are quote alive as a soul, right? So they can still think, and that's kind of it. Okay, so how does a foreskin think?
all right.
Or a finger, or a jawbone with a tongue attached to it,
or the blood, or the heart, disembodied heart. Yeah, I mean, I can kind of
how it, because I could see like the soul of a saint going, I'm going to intercede and facilitate God to do this miracle, but a chunk of bone isn't going to have the capacity to do that.
Yeah. Well, and that's what it goes back to the whole thing that religious belief is delusional. Because it's like, if you, like you were saying, if you put that much power into a relic, come on, are you really thinking that clearly? You think some foreskin of Christ is gonna?
Because if you compare it to people who collect celebrity memorabilia, because let's be honest, the saints or people like that were the celebrities of medieval and ancient times, basically. Mm-hmm. So if you think of like somebody who collects, I don't know, dresses.
Signatures.
My collection of books up in front of me here, virtually every one of them are signed by the author. But I was thinking more like somebody, and I've seen this on TV shows before, where like, let's say somebody has a collection of dresses worn by Marilyn Monroe. Or
scars that Elvis would take from like women, and then he'd throw them back at him, and then that would, I think, be an example of like what they would consider third class, like it's something that touched a saint or whatever, and then he'd kiss the scarf and throw it back, like it's
exactly. But the difference is, while the person who is collecting this stuff, you could say they kind of venerate the celebrity, but they don't expect that the celebrity is going to cure their cancer or, make give them a child or, make some miracle shit happen, right? Like,
I don't even think they still do that in modern times as much. I think that still very much is such a medieval idea that you would do that. And medieval times sucked, so I guess you would have to have something to make you feel better.
Catholicism still uses saints to intercede, right?
Yes, they do.
So
they do. But I don't see as much like, oh, we have to take a pilgrimage to such and such church. Like, I've never heard a Catholic say that in my life.
I have.
Okay, well, you must know more devout Catholics than I do.
In fact, one of the articles actually mentioned with some of the relics we talked about tonight, and I think this was just recent, where the Pope, I believe, don't quote me on that, has actually stated that parishioners need to make pilgrimage to some of these relics.
Oh, I could believe it.
Okay, I thought they just still had them because it was like something cool that it increased tourism, and that's just part of it.
Well, I think
you can't set up a Catholic altar without a relic.
Yeah,
that's true.
Set up a Catholic altar. The local priest, he's got a little relic that he puts on the corner of the altar before he says
Where
mass.
How are they finding all this shit? Although I got it, just quick though, Tris says, I have an autographed CD from Jennifer Knapp. Should I pray before it next time I'm sick?
Well, it's like the picture of Nichelle Nicole you got for me.
Yeah.
I mean, I I highly regard her. I think she's a cool lady, and the fact that she's been through what I've been through, and the fact that not even 3 months after her stroke, she was up flying in a specialized jet on the the literal borders of space. I mean, that was kind of a inspiration to me.
Yeah.
But you're not praying to her. I mean,
No.
obviously not.
No, but well, and like with collecting things, I used to collect baseball cards, and I stopped years ago, but I still have certain cards, primarily Ken Jr. Griffey rookie cards, that I have kept because, hopefully they'll go back up in value in time for my retirement. Yeah, wishful thinking. But, yeah, I have things that I collect, but it's like you said, Deana, I don't. I mean, yeah, I think Nichelle Nichols is a neato person, but I don't worship her. Well, not in that sense.
Yeah.
Well, but
like Trish said, the next time you get a headache, you're not going to whip out your picture and be like, "Dear Nichelle, please fix my headache. I want to go to work."
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. I mean, there's certain people who have always been, inspirations for me. Like, Martina Navratilova growing up. I mean, she was the first, even though she never officially came out when she was younger, it was blatantly obvious to those of us that followed her that she was gay. I mean, but she was my only role model growing up.
Yeah.
But I also thought she was kind of a, a neat person. Same with Shep Messing, who played for the New York Cosmos in soccer. I was a goalie when I played soccer. So I gravitated towards him. And I remember when I finally got to meet him and get his autograph, I was probably 16. So I wasn't that young, wasn't that old either. And he was at the All-Star game for indoor soccer when we had the Buffalo Stallions, and I waited and waited and waited and waited. I was probably there 3 hours after the game, and he finally snuck out. And I'm like, "Mr. Messing, can I shake your hand?" And I didn't wash my cheek for about a month.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cute.
But it's like, I still remember that because, one of my friends who I'm actually reconnected with on Facebook brings it up because she's still jealous as hell after 35 years because Shep Messing was her favorite player. But it's just, but this, like Morgan said, I don't rub Nichelle's picture on my head to get rid of a headache, or no, Trish. Yeah. It's like, no. I just, highly regard these people.
I should tell. It'd be funny because, of course, I have Ali Rizvi's book here, which I love his book. It's one of my favorites, and he's my friend and stuff. And I could just be like, "Hey, Ali, I'm gonna start praying to your book when I don't feel good."
We should start it because I have his book too. We should both rub it on our head and.
He would laugh. I'm gonna have to
get started.
Yeah. Hey, Ali, we're starting a cult in your name for you.
Well, didn't someone just recently accuse him? I know one of our other mutual friends has been accused of it.
Cult. I haven't seen that, but it's entirely possible that
I think I saw a posting he had posted saying someone accused him of cultish behavior.
A cult.
Yeah, I know one of our mutual friends who's an author who just recently put out another book has been accused of that. So
yes, on multiple occasions.
Yes, on numerous occasions.
Oh yeah, I know this friend.
Is there any truth to it?
No.
I mean, because watching a cult start is kind of interesting. You know, Beth, you've had the front row seat to the Jilly Juice
Oh,
cult.
and she's getting worse. Oh, yes, she's getting worse.
Oh, don't get her started on that yet.
No, no, I will shut up. But yeah, I know what you're saying, but no, there's no, I know this person, and
Yeah.
basically what it is, in my opinion, and this is strictly my opinion, and I'm not naming names for a specific reason because, you know, it just doesn't need to be bandied even more. She's a very strong-willed and does a lot for the trans community, and people have taken, for lack of a better word, because I can't think of one at the moment, offense to it. They find it very disconcerting, and it's basically some of these people that are against this person I would call TERFs, if I understand the term. If I understand the term correctly, I may be using it wrong. So if I am,
well, a TERF is
Trish can correct me because she knows the whole story.
TERF is somebody who calls themselves a feminist who does not believe or accept that trans women are women and therefore would exclude them from anything to do with feminism.
I find some, and you know how this ties into the relic. I could never see anything that this person do to even remotely even resemble like some of the bullshit we, you know, with these relics.
I have her book too. I could pray to her if I get a cold.
Yeah,
I have that too, and it's signed.
Yes, it's mine.
But
like,
well, and the thing is, so Deana brings up a good point: is how easy would it be for some of us within the community, and I'm not specifically referring to this person, but any of us who are strong personalities, to actually, you know, quote holy, Galileo's finger, for example.
Yeah.
And start a fucking cult surrounding this I have a first edition copy of God Delusion by Richard Dawkins.
Or a signed copy of Origin of the Species.
Yeah, that's even better. I mean, it's like, how easy could it be? I mean,
yeah, but what, you know, I mean, you have to have more than that. I mean, you're watching, I hate to bring that person's name up, but you're watching her, and you know, she's got an article of faith that you have to drink her swill or else.
Yeah, well, it's just like I've seen with one of my I guess I could say friends. I don't consider him an enemy or anything, but I am pretty much against everything he stands for, but that's besides the point. But I interviewed him twice when I was still involved in the paranormal, and I've actually watched him, you know, develop, and I see a lot of the similarities with She Who Will Remain Nameless, so I don't get off track. But I mean, we could very easily, within the atheist community, the secular community, or, you know, do this.
There are secular cults out there. I mean, there's cults. I mean, there's this one, I forget the guy's name, but it's a communist cult. I wish I could remember his name.
I know who you're talking about, and I can't think of his name.
Talk for a minute, and I'll look him up.
Yeah, but it's just like, I mean, you know, like Deb said, the origin of the species. We can start a cult around that. You know,
and then it'd be like, hey, I have a piece of Charles Darwin's beard.
You know, I mean, look at James Applewhite with Heaven's Gate.
Oh yeah.
What's interesting is that those things all have, you know, I can imagine that some atheists especially would be willing to pay quite a bit of money for those things, but I think the difference lies in the belief system that you have around it, because, you know, you can just say, oh, I think it's cool that I have like this, you know, original Origin of the Species signed by you know, Charles Darwin. Like, I would think that's freaking cool. So, you know, it's like
there's a difference between collecting for, you know, like how you, and then bringing all this other bullshit into it, you know,
Like if you set up an altar in your living room with, you know, your signed origin of the species and some beard clippings and you know,
Galapagos tortoises,
and started chanting, you know, layers of the evolutionary tree that you've memorized, and you know, you start off with the protein layer and go up from there.
Like the rosary, you know, it's like
yeah, it's like, oh, this time today I'm going to do the such and such class of reptiles, you know.
instead of the passion, it's the beaks of finches.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what baffles me about it, because in some ways, because, you know, with she who will remain nameless and with my other friend, you know, I had a friend whose son was involved in Heaven's Gate. So, you know, and you know, I'm old enough. I lived.
Nichelle Nichols lost her brother at Heaven's Gate.
Yes. Nichelle Nichols lost her brother as well.
Oh, wow.
And, you know, Dee and I are old enough to remember Johnstown.
Yep.
That Jonestown was,
You know, and they just had an anniversary, what, about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago?
It was 40 years. I mean, you know, when you're 18 years old, that kind of does, you know.
Yeah, I mean, and
there's lesser known ones. I was just listening to a series on like the Order of the Solar Temple, which didn't really get as much traction for whatever reason. But
that because there was a bunch of them that died in Quebec here.
Yeah, in Quebec and Switzerland and France.
I'm thinking it didn't get so much traction in English because of the language barrier.
Yeah,
that and also I feel like they didn't have as many of these millennium kind of centered doomsday cults over there, and also I think that just cultural differences, and also they didn't leave behind a ton of information. Like they designed like bombs to go off to disintegrate most of the information, but some of them didn't go off, and that's why we do have some evidence we have today. And then there's one person who was supposed to be killed, but he refused to go in because he smelled gasoline.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so as far as secular cults go, the one I was thinking of is the Revolutionary Communist Party, headed up by Bob Avakian.
Oh, okay, I was thinking of something else then.
Now, yeah, well, I mean, you know, you could also think of, oh God, what is his name? What is his name?
Well, I don't know.
He called himself a Democrat, but he was in prison in the late 80s, and one of his cellmates was Jim Baker, and now I cannot remember his name.
Oh,
you know who I'm thinking of? Yeah, but he was, the first I ever heard of him was way back in 1980 when he was trying to run for some party position, and his stuff was wacko jacko. I mean, he was like, you know, you heard Queen Elizabeth being a reptilian. Well, before she was a reptilian, she was a drug pusher.
Sounds like a libertarian.
It's Lyndon LaRouche. I knew I'd come up with
that name. Lyndon LaRouche.
Yeah. Anyway,
but could you imagine groups like his or individuals like him who had their like own quote relics? It's in some ways it's scary.
What is it? The skin that Queen Elizabeth sheds? Like, what would they have? Because they think she's a reptile? Like, what?
Oh, damn.
I'd be afraid of some of them.
Would you guys consider the Raelians to be secular?
In a way, yeah. I mean, it's just because, there's not like any kind of worship of like necessarily like a god. I mean, a cult leader isn't necessarily like somebody that you.
Yeah, they could have like, you know, relics of like alien body parts or something.
Have you speaking of aliens, have you ever read any of Voorhees's work?
No.
Oh, yeah, it's
if it's weirder than L. Ron Hubbard, then yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to do and I'll have to get you all the copy. I have it on my other computer. We'll have to do an episode on the aliens.
You know what we could do? We could do a, you know, weird scripture.
That would be fun too.
You know, and not, and you know, and not limited to, you know, I mean, in fact, I would strongly suggest going outside, you know, the usual suspects, and pulling up those weird L. Ron Hubbard things that, you know, everybody's
Oh, girl, I actually have, I think I downloaded it, but it's on WikiLeaks, is the original recording of L. Ron Hubbard giving the original Xenu lecture.
Yes, I know what you're talking about.
I've read, well, I've listened to that, and it's funny because the lecture starts out being about touch assists, which is where Scientologists believe that they have superpowers. So if somebody's having a bad time, they can like touch them and make it all better. And he's talking about how to do that. But then he like goes off on this tangent about fucking Xenu and stuff. And it's like, huh?
He did that a lot, man. He really did that a lot. But yeah,
but all that fun stuff is out on WikiLeaks to be enjoyed. So but you guys were talking about the Shroud of Turin earlier. I found something, and I think Morgan, you said you did Listverse, so you probably came across this one too. I'd never heard of this before, but it's called the Mandalian.
Oh yeah, it's isn't that Veronica's scarf? Isn't that what it is? You know,
it's yeah.
It's the Shroud of Turin was.
Well, no, it says, so this is what it says on the article. It says, the poor man's Shroud of Turin, the Mandalian of Edessa, is a towel on which Jesus had dried his face.
Yes, that's Veronica's napkin.
Yep. The legend behind the relic is that the towel was created after the Turkish king Egbar of Edessa commissioned an artist to produce a portrait of Christ. After failing to capture Christ's brilliance, which, okay, seriously, you think like some mortal artist is going to be able to do that? Dumbass. But the artist was given the towel by Christ himself. When the artist returned with the Mandalian, the king was cured of his leprosy. Okay, so I'm like, where did the leprosy come from?
Well, what I find...
Oh, and it just says, it remains one of the most important relics in the Vatican collection and currently resides in the Pope's private chapel.
I find it interesting if he was given the towel by Christ himself. Why is it a white man on the towel?
Yeah, I know, eh? That's white Jesus right there.
I mean, so this whole notion of white Jesus is not that new. That's really bizarre.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, there does not, according to, by this picture, seem to be any Middle Eastern or Eastern or features, at least
no,
depicted. What's that Virgin Mary's breast milk? What the fuck is that?
We talked about that.
I know we mentioned it.
It says holy breast milk was an extremely popular relic in the Middle Ages. An entire church was built outside Bethlehem on a rock, which had miraculously turned white after coming into contact with the Virgin's milk as she breastfed Christ. Another legend says that Saint Bernard was praying before a statue of the Madonna when milk sprayed from its breast into his mouth. Many vials of milk were taken and transported all over Europe. The French theologian John Calvin said, had the Virgin been a cow her whole life, she could never have produced such a quantity.
Well, you know, there's a during the Middle Ages in England, there was a town called Walsingham that had a a vial of this milk. And according to the legend, a Saxon noblewoman, Richelgis de Faverches, had a vision of the Virgin Mary in which she was instructed to build a replica of the house of the Holy Family in Nazareth in honor of the Annunciation. And then the Holy House was paneled with wood and contained a wooden statue of an enthroned Virgin Mary with child Jesus seated on her lap. Among its relics was a vial of the Virgin's milk. And Walsingham became one of Northern Europe's great places of pilgrimage during most of the Middle Ages. And I want to say that the Canterbury Tales is kind of around that, if memory serves.
Yeah, I mentioned it earlier. It's basically they're all going on a pilgrimage to go and see. I forget what the particular relics were, but on the way they're telling each other stories. So it's kind of what it's all. They do all these different tales, but
yeah, so if we're gonna, I actually have a couple of pictures, or a picture or two I'd like to show you guys. Speaking of places to go, this is okay. This is from Unzen, okay, which is in Japan. It's in Nagasaki Prefecture, and it is what they call a volcanic fumarole. The pipes that you see, they actually pull the water out and send it down the hill into the town, where there are several hotels where they have hot spring baths or onsens. Onsens are hugely popular in Japan. Anyway, the reason I have pictures of this particular one and is that it is in this hot spring, this particular hot spring in 1627 through 1634, that the Japanese basically boiled alive a bunch of Christians.
Oh no, lovely.
Well, and here's another view. Okay, it's actually a nice view, except it stinks like sulfur, as you can imagine, rotten eggs, and but the whole area is really pretty. But the thing that I came back home with and didn't realize until I came back home was I lived 58 years in the United States and never went to a place where people were executed for their religious belief. It took going to Japan to do that. And my point about that is when people start ranting and raving about, oh, we are being so persecuted. No, baby, you are not being persecuted. Trust me on that one.
No.
Well, actually, I take it a bit further. Like Jewish people and Muslim people have been targeted in this country, but like I've never heard of anybody going into a place and killing a bunch of people just because they're Christians.
No, never heard of that. I had to go all the way 10,000 miles to Japan for that. So anyway, but I thought those were interesting.
We had a Christian kill a bunch of Muslims up here.
Yeah, and a bunch of Sikhs have been killed here as well for just being thought to be Muslim.
There's a guy, so I forget his name, last name Singh, obviously, and I know where the memorial is. It's in town. He was killed on 9/11 because he wore a turban, and the gas station he owned is about 9 miles east of me.
Right
down the road, he's at 80th and University.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, it's like, in fact, they were just talking about the situation in China with the
Uyghurs.
What is it?
Uyghurs. Uyghurs. But it basically what the Chinese are doing is unbelievably, it's gobsmacking. Apparently, they are moving in a lot of Han Chinese, and they've moved out about 1 million Uyghurs into labor camps for re-education. The rest of the Uyghurs, about 9 million, are basically having to put up their Han brethren so that the Han brethren can make sure that they're actually acting Chinese and not like Muslims, which, is just awful.
Yeah, and then I know, like, over in the Middle East, being Christian can be life-threatening, but it's just like, here in this country, it's like, no.
anybody over this way that gripes about being persecuted as a Christian, my response is go to the town square of Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, and preach the Bible, and then tell me what being persecuted is about.
Yeah.
Because you will land your ass in prison before you get through 2 verses, and you will probably either be tortured and deported or possibly beheaded, depending on how much your country cares to insult the Saudis to get you back.
And gee, if you're an American, don't even count on that. Look at what happened to that poor guy holding a green card.
Yep.
Yeah. So here's one that I wouldn't have expected there to be a reliquary for, but apparently there is. And since we're coming up on the holiday season, it's kind of pertinent. There exists a shrine that contains the remains of the Magi, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
The Shrine of the Magi. It says the remains of the 3 wise men arrived in Cologne. So I'm guessing Cologne, Germany.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. In 1164, after being gathered in Jerusalem by Saint Helena, and after being held for a number of years in Constantinople and Milan. So
centuries, because she was doing her deal around 325. So centuries.
Yeah.
She was the one digging stuff up, and basically, I suspect people were coming along at night and putting stuff in the dirt, and she'd come along the next day and find shit.
That was Constantine's mother, if I remember correctly.
Yes, that is
Constantine's mother.
Provenance right there is like, oh, those absolutely those in Magi, like totally. So it says the shrine itself is an elaborately decorated gold plate. Here, let me share. Elaborately decorated gold-plated triple sarcophagus held inside the Cologne Cathedral. It's the largest reliquary in the Western world. The relics have become such an important aspect of Cologne's sense of identity that there are 3 crowns on the city's coat of arms. So that is the reliquary, or the Shrine of the Magi in Cologne, Germany. So I'm just like, yeah, with, you know, oh, so somebody gathered up a bunch of bones sometime in Jerusalem, and now we don't know though. I don't think the Magi were from Jerusalem, were they?
They were not. And why would they have been buried there?
Well, yeah, why would they be buried there in the first place?
Yeah, one of the hypotheses is that they were actually from the Far East, from either China or Japan, or possibly India. As
would make even less likely.
Well, that hypothesis lends credence to the belief that Christ was actually a Buddhist.
Oh, okay.
His so-called lost years, he spent time under Buddha.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember the whole hypothesis correctly. There is a documentary, I believe by Nat Geo, one of the more reputable, have done a Was Jesus a Buddhist documentary type thing. Quite interesting, but you know, I lean more towards that Christ never existed, period. So, but yeah. I do find those kind of things interesting. But yeah, that's where they think the Magi might have been Indian, or possibly Japan or China, most likely China.
Or it could have been somebody's idea of making Jesus look better after the fact. You know, I mean, that doesn't require Jesus not to have existed. It could have, you know, I mean, because if you look at the guy who came up with it, this is, you know, 40, 50 years after Jesus was executed, and, you know, all sorts of stuff was floating around.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I am thinking that if if you are trying to promote somebody as being really super important, you want him recognized by people who would be in the know, like Eastern magi. You do that. Doesn't mean that they actually showed up. I mean, my personal thing is that I think Jesus was born. He was born in Nazareth, not Bethlehem. That whole thing is, red herring. But, people tend to get a little itchy when you start talking about, their treasured myths, especially Christmas.
Yep.
I try to do the whole Occam's razor thing. It's like, what is the most likely thing?
Yep.
Born in Nazareth, maybe nearby, but certainly not in Bethlehem. Why would they do that? There was no census. There was no, magi. There was none of that stuff. It was just, there's probably things we don't know. I have some ideas on that, but, and it's not like they're original with me, but it's not stuff you are going to hear in Sunday school, even at your more, shall we say, tolerant or liberal churches. So, because really that kind of thing is pretty much reserved for going to liberal seminary. Hey, I had actually considered it at one point.
Oh,
and I didn't want to be a pastor, so it's like, no.
Here's another one I hadn't heard of. Mary's Holy Belt. This comes from that fellow's blog. It says, most religious relics seem to be in the form of body parts, but the Virgin Mary left her belt behind instead. Her hand-woven belt is kept in a silver reliquary in Prato Cathedral. The arrival of the relic allowed the cathedral to add and transept a new chapel. I guess that means consecrate. I don't know.
Actually, a transept is kind of like it's like a cross piece on it. Think of it.
Right.
It's the transept is the cross piece. So basically, off of fundraising for that, they were able to add a big ass hog onto the cathedral.
Right. So it says, according to legend, she gave the belt to the Apostle Thomas before she ascended to heaven. That's the doubting Thomas, in case you're wondering. And the Virgin allegedly gave him her belt as a physical proof of her ascension. The belt, known as the Sacra Cintola, is displayed 5 times a year in the chapel, built especially to house it. In centuries gone by, it was venerated by pregnant women. So how is it that here, I'm going to fly off to heaven now. Here's a belt that supposedly proves that I flew off to heaven?
It doesn't work. But, no. I mean, and I'm the kind of person, and this is not even I want to prove it wrong. I have done weaving in the past. I want to look at this belt and see what the weaving is like, what the fabric is made out of, how it was spun, that sort of thing. I'm not even talking about, I'd like to see the same thing for the Shroud of Turin. I know there's some data on it, but these kind of material culture things I'm really interested in.
Oh, totally. Now, I've just Googled, and I don't think there is an image of it out. Oh, well, now, what does this say? Oh, no, this is the Holy Belt of Theotokos.
Theotokos is the Greek name for the Virgin Mary. It's Mother of God in Greek. Theo is God. Tokos is mother.
Okay.
They don't call her the Mother of God. They call her the Theotokos. They don't call her the Virgin Mary.
This is the only. And you can't really even see the belt. Like the box just totally.
Well, that kind of sucks, man. I mean, because how am I supposed to be able to tell what it's made out of if I can't see?
Well, exactly. I'm like. It's just a freaking box. Like, show me the damn belt.
I mean, because I'm seriously interested in these kinds of,
I am too. Like, yeah, because there are. Oh, look, there's a painting where she's supposedly holding it.
Yeah, but that doesn't tell me anything. It just says,
oh,
It's orange.
okay. Can you see that? It's looks like it's kind of like a pinkish velvet with jewels and shit. Okay, I'm sorry, but some like carpenter's mom or carpenter's wife from, the Middle East of that is not going to have a belt that looks like that. That's a king's belt.
Hey, we don't know how many coffee tables Joseph was selling.
Well, and that's the thing. There's so many. There seems to be so many relics out there. I mean, it's like you were saying, Deb, with Providence. I mean, how I mean, just because some Joe Blow says, "Well, I got this from so and so," and they said it was associated with doohickey, and
so if you look here, so we have an icon. This looks like an Eastern icon. That looks like Cyrillic, so it might be
probably
Russian icon that supposedly has Mary holding the belt. Now, the color in the painting isn't too off. It's sort of kind of like the color of what they say is the real belt. But you'll notice in the painting, there's no jewels on that thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking they put the jewels, that the belt is in there, and the jewels are on top of it to make it look, holy and all that good stuff. The thing that I want to know, going back to material culture, is what, was that the original color? What's the dye that was used?
Yeah.
Because I would bet money that it's not, that no matter how old it is, it's probably not the original color.
No. And is it me or does that look like velvet to you?
Looks like leather.
Yeah, it looked like leather from my angle.
Yeah, okay. It does kind of look like leather. And it could be a leather belt for all we know.
Yeah.
Except that, of course, in the painting, she's holding cloth. Now, but then, too, who knows when that icon was made?
Mm-hmm.
And is that a modern icon? Is that a copy of an older icon? Is it an old icon itself? Who the hell knows?
Well, that's one thing like with the relics is that, I mean, going back to when we were talking about the dead sea skulls last week, was that it seems that with the relics, Providence doesn't really matter.
Yep.
It doesn't matter, really doesn't. It's these things are, quote, matters of faith, unquote, and it's not like there is a market for relics, but officially the Catholic Church will tell you that you are not buying the relic, you are buying the container that it comes in. So that's so they can sell those things on eBay, but you're not buying the relic, you're buying the container it comes in.
According, I followed a link from one of those pictures, and it's saying it's called the 8 miracles of the Holy Girdle of the Theotokos, which you said is Mother, the Holy Mother. So it's saying, it says it's difficult to have kids. I think this might be translated, but Father Theotimos comes from Congo. He studied theology in Greece. He wished to have kids so much, but had a problem. He asked for the ribbon blessed on the holy belt. And then he says, this is it says FR Theotimos. Yeah, which I'm like, aren't you supposed to be celebrating? Oh, in Greek Orthodox, they're not, are they?
They're not. I mean, if you're, yeah.
Okay, so Father Theotimos had some kind of fertility issue. He asked to have the belt blessed, or to bless the holy belt or whatever. And it says, we received the holy belt in March of 1992. In May 1992, my wife became pregnant and we had a baby son. He was born with a cesarean, and we baptized him Marios to honor the name of the Panagia. I guess the Mother Mary.
Panagia, probably, right?
Yeah, Panagia.
That's another name for the Virgin Mary.
And it says the doctors had previously verified that it would have been difficult for us to have children. And then it says in 93, my wife was 8 months pregnant and had a problem. She had to have another cesarean before the end of the gestation period. What? Now, how would this happen? Says my wife wore the holy belt on her for 2 days before the operation, and they had a healthy girl.
This must be another one of those situations where there are multiple holy belts wandering around.
There have to be, although the picture on the site is the one that we were looking at. So, yeah, maybe.
Maybe you have some kind of special permission or something, but that's still weird.
I know. I'm like, there's no way that they're just going to let some priest wife walk around with the belt on for 2 days. Like, you just know.
Yeah, but you never know. Things I've seen weirder, so you know.
See, here's another one. Somebody in Athens. I would like to mention a miracle which took place to my wife when she was wearing the holy belt of the Most Holy Mother of God, which a priest from your monastery had given us in August of 92. It almost sounds like it's the same person, though. Blah, blah, blah. Been diagnosed with compulsive neurosis. She is prescribed 12 pills a day to deal with depression and suicidal tendencies. She was having attacks and crying all day. We visited many doctors, and we found our spiritual father, Father E. Everything changed since then. We turned towards the right path. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so basically she put the belt on and it made her depression go away, apparently. Yeah, there's something weird about this, because later on he's talking about then after, her depression got fixed, they still couldn't have children, and she was wearing it all the time, he says. There's no way that they're just letting random women walk around with a holy relic on.
Like, I know, it's pretty rando.
That's odd.
And so basically this is like 8 different people that said, we wanted to have a child, and my wife put this ribbon on and now she's pregnant, kind of thing. And they're all in the early to mid, is like 92, 93, 95, 95, 95. Yeah. Oh, this person, it got rid of their back pain.
The Virgin Mary baby boom.
Hey man, if it's going to get rid of back pain, I need that thing. So if anybody is in Greece, can you send me the holy ribbon? Because I could really use that. Although, can you guarantee that it'll just fix my back? Because I really don't want to get pregnant. That would not be good.
A semi-miracle. You ask for that.
Ooh, there's a name. Papa Christopoulos. That's all one word. Miraculously, the holy belt has miraculously given me 12 children. Okay, you know what? Keep the thing.
Yeah, I don't think you want that, Deb. No.
Oh, hell no. Oh, no. And I love how nobody ever thanks the doctors here, Especially, so it's like talking about his wife needing to have a baby and all this stuff. And she started having health problems with her first baby. And it's like, my wife's other pregnancies were also problematic, but with the grace of the Holy Belt, we have managed to have 12 kids, 6 boys and 6 girls. Okay, I'm sorry, but would not the pregnancies have gone a little smoother, you think, if you're wearing a magic belt?
You would think.
You'd think. But, oh well. But anyway, so I just thought that was funny. The 8 miracles of the Holy Belt of Mary. But I'm wondering if you're right, Dee, if the Greek one is different from the other one.
You know, if it's like, you know, the 13 holy prepuces out there, I wouldn't be surprised.
Well, and it's a lot easier to fake a belt than it is a foreskin. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Unless
You know,
they're both kind of leathery.
Actually, well, you know, I could actually think of a way to fake a holy foreskin. It just involves, you know, dried animal. It doesn't have to be dried human. It could be dried pig. You know, you can say anything that looks like a ring is, you know, a ring of dried flesh is holy foreskin. I am a terrible person.
No, that's hilarious.
I would love for them to do a DNA test.
Oh, that'd be a good one.
I don't know if you can get anything off of it though, if it's like old. Yeah.
Or if there's any means of determining whether it's actually human.
You might could.
Yeah. Well, that's what the one Vice article was talking about, is that some of these relics of so-called body parts, whether it's a hand, arm, foot, jaw, whatever, some of them aren't even that have been tested, not the more famous ones, but aren't even coming back as being human.
Yeah.
Some type of animal.
They're like chicken bones or whatever.
I just found it just so bizarre with this whole thing with the Holy Relics. It just really weird.
This one, I don't think any of you have considered before. So this was a lady by the name of Saint Clare of Assisi.
Oh, she was Francis's buddy.
Yes. Well, she's got a typical one where somebody's got a box of her hair. So, you know, that kind of, I could see that, you know, people today will even, you know, save a lock of my loved one's hair. And there's the whole Victorian mourning jewelry with hair. I even own some pieces of that. So that I could totally see.
Yeah, or like your baby's first haircut. I've seen where people will make lockets out of that.
Oh, yeah.
My dad still
my mother has a lock of my hair in my baby book.
Yeah, mine too. But now this one you wouldn't have. This was also in the Cracked article, so you'll like this because it talks about how Pope Pius XII in 1958 also made her the patron saint of television because she saw a vision of mass being projected on her wall one time when she was too sick to go to mass.
Well, it was like 3D. It was like of the hologram. It's like from the accounts that I've read, because I've read another account of it before, and it was like it's when they have like the hologram of Prince, you know, out there.
Like hologram Tupac, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
But, that it has, when it came to preserving a bit of the special lady for future generations to enjoy, the church decided to go the dirty old sofa cushion route and settled on a crystal vial full of her fingernail clippings.
Oh God!
Yeah.
Because there's something that's not totally gross.
Well, I told you what happened to poor Thomas Aquinas. They basically boiled him, you know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And last but not least, and I'm looking for, because it was in a couple of these lists, we had the Cloak of Mohammed. So... And this one is in Afghanistan. It doesn't look like much. Here's a photo. Yeah, it just looks like a beige piece of cloth with this. I think that crest thing they put on it afterwards, but
Yes, that's
the name Muhammad, I think, in Arabic or something.
yeah, and age. Yeah. Yes, it is.
I thought I recognized
Arabic.
it. But it says the founder of modern Afghanistan, Ahmad Shah, once found the cloak of Muhammad in Bukhara. So he found a cloak and he just knew it was Muhammad's cloak. Apparently, I don't know how that works. But wanting the relic for himself, he asked the keepers to lend it to him. Oh, so some people in Bukhara had a cloak that they were claiming was the cloak of Muhammad. And he's like, well, I want that. So he asked to borrow it. Adverse to lending such a precious item, he vowed never to take the cloak away from a very large boulder. Okay. It said their trust proved their undoing, for as soon as the cloak came into the king's hands, he immediately ordered the removal of the rock and transported them both back to Kandahar. The cloak is now kept in a shrine near Ahmad Shah's tomb, where the boulder also resides. So, see now, why would Allah let this guy get away with totally bilking these people out of a holy relic?
Because Allah doesn't care what people do with holy relics. I mean, seriously, if you wanted, there are some radical Muslims that think this sort of thing is completely beyond the pale, and that all this trade in relics and going and visiting Sufi saints' graves and stuff like that is so wrong. Which is why you have those like ISIS destroying stuff, destroying tombs and things like that. So there are people out there who call themselves Muslim who would be really, really, well, they deserve to be cheated because God didn't tell them to do that sort of thing.
True.
Blah, 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 I'm holier than you, blah, blah.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that. And I'm not going to spend much time on it because we're kind of past our time a little bit. Mary Magdalene's arm is apparently out there.
I saw that one. That story's wild.
All right, well, we'll tell the story, and I gotta show the picture because it's actually not gross. They've hidden it in this lovely silver thing.
Oh, yeah, that is kind of nice. If I had to have a piece of my body in a relic, that's kind of a nice case.
Yeah, it is. So it says in 1191, Saint Hugh visited the Abbey of Fécamp. Shown the abbey's relic of Mary Magdalene's arm, he tried to take a piece. Finding it difficult to remove the chunk manually, and to the horror of the monks, he bit off 2 fingers.
I thought you said it wasn't gross.
The picture's not gross.
You said nothing about the story.
The story is gross. He justified his actions thus, quote, "If a little while ago I handled the sacred body of the Lord with my fingers in spite of my unworthiness and partook of it with my lips and my teeth, why should I not treat the bones of the saints in the same way, and without profanity acquire them whenever I can?"
I'm with the monks on this one that are all horrified.
Well, what does he mean by I just handled the sacred body of the Lord?
He's gone to communion.
Okay, because I read that before and I was like, what the hell is he talking about? Yeah,
Transubstantiation.
So then, now, does that mean he ate the fingers, or did he bite them off and take them with him?
I think he
bit
He
them
just
off.
took them.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, well, that's that. Yeah. So there's one to end the evening on.
To ponder.
Yes.
And I'm gonna have fucking nightmares.
What is it like to bite the fingers off a shriveled corpse hand? Ah.
I mean, I have to admit, some of the containers or bejeweling is
Reliquaries is
well,
what, yeah.
reliquaries are pretty. You know, they're nice.
Yeah, beautiful.
Some of them are gaudy. I mean, way over the top gaudy. But biting fingers off of, like you said,
I told you what they were doing with St. Thomas Aquinas. They were boiling him. People were stealing, you know, because when Teresa of Avila died, people were basically dismembering her, you know, because they wanted a piece of the saint. I mean, people got weird about their, you know, wanting a piece of the action, as it were.
Yeah, they did the same thing with Bonnie and Clyde. When they died, people would were coming up with like scissors and like grabbing snippets of her clothing and stuff.
Ooh, that's kind of gross.
Yeah,
that's great.
I just find the whole notion of relics just really odd.
I can agree with that.
It's very odd. Very odd.
Well, yeah, that's probably why they put her arm in silver. They were like, "Quit biting her fingers."
Bite this, asshole.
Yeah, basically.
I think I'd rather have a signature in a book. Or
you know what I was thinking is that guy probably bit the fingers off of some poor dead French peasant. You know?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, probably.
Because like chicken wings.
Oh, that's I'm not even.
Sorry.
Good thing I don't like chicken.
Jeez.
I do. This is not making me happy.
Well, on that note, Beth, where can we find you?
Easiest way to find me is on Twitter, Dune998. That connects to my blog. Havoc and Chaos over on Blogger, where I post about the abuses in the church, and She Who Will Rename Nameless, although I haven't written in about a week and a half. I've taken a wee break. That connects to, used to connect to Facebook, but you can also find me on Facebook at Bethany Hambridge. And if all goes according to plan, I will have a new video out. I hope. I'm going to test a new setup I have. So I'm working on a response to a Creato Tard's refutation of evolution. It's like, okay, it's so full of prats. I'm like, I was hesitant to do it, but this guy posted it as, you know, evolution is wrong bullshit. And it's not the usual, but it's the Uri Miller experiment. And
right.
It's just, you know, it's a video of some professor out of Berkeley who is actually a Moonie. Which I find.
It's Jonathan Wells, and he's a
yes.
I mean, I was arguing with the guy about, is this the guy that, you know, the same guy on Kent Hall on
oh yeah, it is.
Yeah, I'm like, it's Jonathan Wells. He's been a Moonie since 1974. And he's a fellow at the Discovery Institute, or the Disco-tude, as I like to call it.
Oh, the Discovery Institute. Yeah, they would show us videos from them at French camp.
Yeah, but it's just it's not the usual response that some people have gotten. I mean, he just posted this link to this video, didn't say anything about it, and it's like, it took me basically to do a preliminary debunk all of 5 minutes. It's like, dude, you're quoting, I mean, like Jerry Coyne, P.Z. Myers. I haven't read any of it yet because I didn't want it to bias me even more than I already am, which I readily admit. But it's just like, it's hysterical. So I want to test out.
I'm just astonished that they let him, you know, into the Disco-tude, considering that he thinks that Sun Myung Moon is the Messiah and that Jesus is a failure.
I find that kind of bizarre. I mean, he's a creationist, but he's not your typical creationist. And his whole point of he has a PhD from Yale in theological studies, but he also has a PhD from Berkeley out in California in molecular biology. And his whole point of getting his second PhD was at the behest of Sun Myung Moon to destroy Darwinism. So I haven't listened to. I'm doing it piece by piece, kind of like if you've ever watched Logic or Vice Rhino, where they go through the video. I'm going through it, one section at a time. As I'm trying to avoid any more bias than I know I already have, because obviously the dude works for the Creationist Institute, and the fact that he's a creationist, they're worthless.
Mhm.
But yeah, so I'm hoping to test out some video stuff and hopefully start doing videos again, especially after the first year. So, but that's easy to find me.
So, quick skip back a bit. Trippin', how you doing there? He it says, is there a drink or shot that has a frozen toe in it somewhere? Yes, that is a Canadian thing. That comes from the Downtown Hotel in Dawson City, Yukon, Canada. And it's called the Sour Toe Cocktail, which features a real mummified human toe. The unique cocktail was introduced in 1973. Over 69,000 paying customers are reported to have tried the concoction. A customer intentionally swallowed the toe in 2013, but the hotel had a replacement. Bartender Terry Lee says they are hoping to have another human toe donated because several toes have been damaged or stolen, swallowed, or lost over the decades.
I've actually heard of that, but many, many, many moons ago.
I heard about that toe thing too, and I remember because it was in the news with the guy swallowing it. Yeah, that was.
Yep.
But it's still.
I vaguely remember. Yeah.
Yeah, that is a Canadian phenomenon. Oh, Trippin's got a cold. Sorry to hear that, man. And yes, we will. If you pop into our Facebook group or page later, we'll post the links of the lists that we were referring to with all of the relics on. He wanted to have the link to the Mary Magdalene arm. Yeah, because hey, biting off the fingers of corpses is always fun reading. But anyway, Morgan, where do we find you?
All right, you can find me on Twitter and on Instagram at Mostring. That's MOSTRING. And you can also find me on Facebook, Morgan L. Stringer. And I should be on an episode with Kevin and Benedict's podcast pretty soon. I will let you know when that posts.
Awesome. Those guys are fun.
Okay, it was a blast.
And Dee, where do we find you? Is there anything you want to promote?
Yeah, you can always follow me on Twitter at MMIRELE, or you can find me on Facebook at Deana, Deana, M. Holmes, HOLMES, as in Sherlock.
Awesome. And of course, you'll find me. Now, I haven't been on Holy Crap for a little while because I wasn't feeling well for a couple of weeks. Last weekend, I had a solstice party I had to go to, and I got home like 5 minutes before they were starting, and I'm like, yeah, I'm too tired for that. But I'm usually on Holy Crap, the vlogcast, which is Sunday mornings at 12:05 a.m. And so I don't think there's anything keeping me from being on this.
12:05 a.m. as in,
midnight. Yes.
Okay, fine. Because I think that would be 10 p.m. my time. This time of year.
Yeah, it's they do that to compete with something called Coast to Coast Radio.
Oh, yes, I know what that is.
Yeah. See, there you go. So that's why Shujin chose such an odd hour, but we did. but we usually have fun on there. Now, next week, I think we'll probably do a show. It's getting awfully close to Christmas. I'm thinking I might just go to podcasters and see who might be around that night who just wants to pop in and do something informal, but we'll see. There is a chance we may say, you know what, we don't have the energy because there's too much going on, but right now, as far as I know, we should have a show next week. But we'll play it by ear and see what comes up, because as I say, it's getting awfully close to Christmas by then. So I know we all have lots of stuff we have to do.
That'll be Christmas Eve.
Yeah, Christmas Eve, because we don't. My parents used to do Christmas on Christmas Eve, but now my one niece has 3 children because she had twins and then another one pretty close after that. And just my other niece is driving and has a job now, and it just is a little tougher. So we're doing ours after Christmas now instead of before. So I actually have absolutely nothing planned on Christmas Eve this far. So we'll see. I do have plans of people over the next day. So if I'm too behind or too tired or whatever, we may give it a pass. That's why I'm not going to plan anything. And if we decide to see who's around and wants to come hang out for a bit, we may do that. But anyway, if we aren't, happy, whatever the fuck you want to celebrate, not celebrate. Hopefully you've been good and gotten some new clothes so the Yule Cat will not come in.
Yes, Yule Cat.
Yes, because Yule Cat is still the shit. I'm still loving the Yule Cat. Like, awesome. Apparently,
what is Yule Cat?
Oh, it's a thing we did in Iceland. So I used to live in Iceland, and it's a cat that will come and eat you if you don't wear your new Christmas clothes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you've been given new Christmas clothes and wear them. So if you not having any is not an excuse, Yule Cat will come and eat you.
Yeah, and there's also Yule lads that come around and all that kind of stuff. Oh, there's a Yule Cat right there.
There's Yule Cat that we've our adopted Yule
There
Cat.
you are. How you doing, buddy?
Yeah, there's our little hellion who was apparently sleeping sacked out on our bed, and he's like, what am I doing here? I was asleep, man. And he's off. But anyway, so there's that. So until then, like I say, everybody have a happy whatever the fuck it is that you celebrate, don't celebrate, time off of work, whatever. Have a great one. If we are here next week, awesome. We'll be happy to share that time with you. If not, we'll see you after the holidays. And everybody have a great time.
I know the truth and power of reason and of rational thinking, and I will use them to my advantage. I know the truth and power of educating myself and of expanding my intellectual boundaries, and I will educate myself. I know the truth and power of vanquishing ignorance, and I will do so whenever the opportunity presents itself. I know the truth and power of morality without supervision, and of true and accurate righteousness. I know the truth and power of obliterating tyranny, be it intellectual, emotional, or philosophical, and will work toward that goal whenever and however possible. I know the truth and power of human ingenuity. I know the truth and power of human compassion, and I will be mindful of the welfare of others. I know the truth and power of equality and fairness for all living things. I know the truth and power of the importance of our families, our friends, and our fellow men and women. I know the truth and power of human stewardship of our lands, our waters, and our skies, and I will try to act to preserve our environment. I know the truth and power of the sciences of mathematics, of physics, and of chemistry, and of the important role of these disciplines in understanding the workings of this cosmos. I know the truth and power of the rejection of all notions or beliefs that reside in the supernatural or the superstitious, and of those notions or beliefs that we are not supposed to be able to explain. And I know that these rejections are necessary for humankind's survival. I am a human being with a free mind, liberated from irrational influence and from unreasonable dogma.